The first UK revival of Kinky Boots opened in Ipswich last week and continues the trend of kinky fever that we've been seeing all over the place in 2022. As we've seen the original production return to New York off-Broadway, and of course the London concert version. Telling the story of Charlie, who teams up with drag queen Lola to save Charlie's dying factory with a new niche market. This production sees the biggest shift in choreography and staging since the original opened about 10 years ago. This is a production that took a lot of big swings, so what hit? What missed? Was this Kinky Boots as flashy and wonderful as the original? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre, I do reviews, I do discussions, and if that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribing to the channel if you want to see some more. But let's start with the video. The story of Kinky Boots is just as interesting and uplifting as always in this production, with a few changed details. A lot of the jokes that I felt were slightly outdated are gone in this production, as well as changing one of the things that I've been begging Kinky Boots to change for a very long time, which is the ladies, gentlemen, and those who have yet to make up their minds. This anthem is kind of iconic to Kinky Boots. However, as we've kind of gotten a little bit further in the past couple of years with, you know, understanding non-binary people and looking into the spectrum of gender, this felt a little bit outdated. And I've been asking them to change it for a very long time, which this production does to ladies, gentlemen, theys, thems, and you. Now, of course, it's not my suggestion, which would be ladies, gentlemen, and those who exist in between. But when it works, it works. And I'm really glad that this production has taken these steps to kind of update the show and make it feel even more inclusive. This production features all the great songs from the original production, as written by the icon Cyndi Lauper. And if you don't know who Cyndi Lauper is, come on, yes you do. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Yes, she wrote that. She sung that. She did that. In a move that I'm a little bit more conflicted on, this production features a cast of actor musicians. Now, if you know me, I am a big fan of actor musicians. We've seen this trend happening a lot more and more in British theatre, especially with musicals like Amelie, and I've loved it then, and I continue to love it. And I feel like having actor musicians can really enhance the material when done right. But I feel like here the production almost doesn't want to highlight it. A lot of the time, the actor musicians are hidden at the back of the stage when they're part of the band, instead of being blended into the choreography and the staging of the show. I feel like it's a shame because I really want to celebrate this talent and I really want them front and center, showing off, you know, how they're doubling up and being a part of the staging. But the direction doesn't really seem to go there too much. I feel like this might be because not every single actor in this show was a musician as well. Off the top of my head, I think it was Charlie and Lola, both who didn't play instruments. I saw Nicola double up at one point. I saw Lauren double up at one point. It was mostly the kind of factory cast. I feel like there were a lot of opportunities there for them to be able to double up and be front and center while the kind of choreography from the drag cast was happening. It would have been a stronger balance of the two and could have led to some more interesting staging. Despite this, the music soars in this production, and there's some really great ideas and changes, like a slight tweak they do to the start of Soul of a Man, which I felt was really effective. One of the changes in this production that I saw a lot of talk about was the fact that they have minimized the cast. In this version, a lot of the chorus from the original production have been taken out. If my math suits me right, I think it was 2 of the angels and probably about half of the factory workers. This led to a lot more doubling up, and I felt like this worked in terms of getting to know the characters a lot more. I felt like the factory workers we saw and we knew, I knew a lot more about. And I learned a lot more of their names. But that's mainly because there's like 3 of them. Georgie and Pam get a lot more focus, but on the other hand, it did make the factory feel empty. There are so many cases of big numbers and big scenes where there's only 2 factory workers and Charlie on stage. And because of this, I did feel like there were some scenes where the impact of the moment was lost, especially when everyone in the factory leaves Charlie, because he's only losing like 2 people. I think it was an interesting idea, but I feel like having 1 or 2 more cast members in that factory would have helped balance this, or even allowing for a little bit more multi-role from Angel to factory worker, as it's only really occurred in the opening number. I think, however, my favourite change that this production makes is changing the gender of George to Georgie. Kinky Boots is an interesting one, because if you look at the main cast, our 2 female characters are both love interests. I think it's quite clear that the gender of George was most likely changed because of the lack of the chorus. Seeing as most of the factory workers are now men, and you still need a lot of those female voices for songs like What a Man, if you'd kept George, then you have 2 factory workers to back Lola up in What a Man. So obviously you needed at least 1 more. However, I feel like this change kind of lended itself to a lot more kind of elements to the production and added a really interesting new element. Because it kind of gave us something that we don't see a lot in musical theatre, and that is an older female character in a position of power. George in the musical is essentially Charlie's right-hand man. There's a really good scene where Don is kind of making fun of Lola and being very homophobic towards her, and George sets him straight. Changing the gender here kind of added that element of a female figure having that sense of authority, and it adds a maternal figure for Charlie as well. It's such a small little change, however it affects so much of the subtext and it really adds a lot to the show. Let's take a moment to talk about our cast. Matt Corner in this production took up the role of Charlie, and he is a great leading man. His vocals are great, his optimism is infectious, and he even managed to earn sympathy in the moments of the show where he's at his lowest and honestly at his most unreasonable. Keanu Adolphus Johnson, before I get into it, what a name. Johnson as Lola is camp and commands attention with fantastic vocals and a performance of Hold Me in Your Heart that really got to me and drove me to tears. I have to mention, and I have said this before in my previous review of the concert version of Kinky Boots, Hold Me in Your Heart and Not My Father's Son are 2 moments in the show that really mean a lot to me, and I felt like Johnson gave his all in these moments. Now, I've only seen this name written, never heard it pronounced, and I'm really sorry I'm about to butcher it. Aruhan Galavera's Lauren is a burst of energy. She really sells the goofier side of Lauren, although I wish that the sassier and grittier side of the character came out a little bit more in the portrayal. With that said, she absolutely kills with her version of the history of Wrong Guys, with some amazing comic timing. And then our supporting cast all get their moments to steal the show. I want to give a special mention to all of the angels in this production. They're such a great ensemble, all feeling so unique, and I'm so glad that this production took that step, because I felt like the angels in the original kind of felt a bit more like American drag queens. They kind of felt more like a chorus instead of having their own drag styles and their own kind of unique voice. They were a bit too polished, and I feel like there's a lot more personality that comes out of each of the drag queens in this ensemble. The design of the show is where I feel like this production gets a lot of its own voice from. There's so many great ideas, especially in the costuming. The air hostess outfits for Sex is in the Heel is a genius idea, and they're so flashy and fun. Lola's finale look is incredible, and I have to mention the out of drag looks for the angels. It's such a nice little touch. The set is less flashy, for obvious reasons. However, I do feel like it has its moments where it really does come to life, especially in the bigger group numbers, with a lot of neon lights and some great projection design on the back wall. Tim Jackson's Kinky Boots takes a lot of big swings, as any good revival should. And while some of these swings do miss, I feel like when it hits, it gets a home run. I don't know cricket. Why am I making sports references? A new version of Kinky Boots was always going to be so tough because it is such a beloved show. But there's so much to get on board with here. So many great ideas and so much that me, as a fan of the original, I can get on board with. But I feel like the important thing about Kinky Boots is just how infectious it is. How quickly an audience comes onto your side because of the feel-good nature of the show. It is the kind of infectious positivity that we need at this point. So, if you are near Ipswich or near Hornchurch for the rest of the month, I would highly consider going to see Kinky Boots. But what do you think? Have you seen this new production of Kinky Boots? Have you seen any other production of Kinky Boots? What's your favourite part? What's your favourite costume? Let me know in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribing. It really helps me out, it helps out the channel. But that's it for me today, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye!